working. This is for the stream for the Wi-Fi. All right, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good evening to everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sports Network. It is your boy Lewis coming back at you once again with another heavy hitter banger with yet another video. Once again, before we get started, you know the deal. Make sure to smash that like button, hit the subscribe button. Make sure your notifications are turned on. Make sure you guys are sharing this on your social media. Make sure you guys are sharing this on your Reddits. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to the Ellison Mod Squad as always. Welcome to new subscribers who are here. Appreciate you guys coming through. Let me know what is going on in the chat. Hope everybody has had a wonderful weekend up to this point. Happy late afternoon, everybody. And once again, appreciate all of you guys coming through. Smash the like, hit the subscribe, make sure those notifications are turned on. And salute to everyone in the chat. How is everybody doing? All right. Can you guys hear me? I just want to know if you guys can hear me just to make sure that the audio is working. So let me know in the comment section if the audio is working, if you guys can hear me, and we'll definitely get started on this live stream for sure. Let me just know if you guys can hear me. As soon as I get a notification if you guys can hear me, uh, let me just see. Let me just see real quick. Just give me confirmation that you guys can hear me in the chat. Let me know if you guys can hear me. As soon as we know that, perfect. Thank you, Karan. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Again, once again, shout out to the Mod Squad. All right, let's go through the sections. Shout out to Alex Sports. Appreciate you coming through. Make sure to go subscribe to his channel. Shout out to G Money in the building. What is good, man? Shout out to Chiefs fan. What's up with you? Shout out to Karamas once again. Shout out to Gabriel, true Mets fan. What's going on, man? Hope everything's good with you. Shout out to Caden. Make sure to go subscribe to his channel. Congratulations on 500 subscribers. How's that? How's that? And also, G Money, I think you should raise up your volume too, man, because everybody else is saying that they can hear me pretty well. So sometimes make sure that you check your audio before you say that you can't hear me first. If your audio is not is good, but then you can't hear me, then it might be something on my end. But make sure to always check your audios first. Um, Karam has decided that he can't wait. Um, let's see. I mean, I raised it as much as I could, so I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe kind of some distortion or something. Not really sure. But shout out to Karan says he can hear me. All right. Shout out to everybody that's in here so far. Again, guys, make sure to like. Make sure to hit the like as you guys come in. All right, and definitely get started. So today's topic is about homegrown against player-created super teams. Are these claims for these teams valid? Here's the reason that I wanted to make this video. The reason I'm making this is because there's always been a lot of confusion as to, well, people think that do super teams do kind of ruin the NBA. I would say that the super teams, it's what generates revenue for the NBA. And here's the thing though, when we look at championships, I want to go back and start with the most recent ones. I'm not going to go with super teams that have existed for a long time. I'm not talking about the 60s Celtics or the 80s Lakers or the 80s Celtics, those kind of teams. I'm not going to focus on those teams. I'm going to focus on 2008 going forward because the issue at hand is between LeBron James and Kevin Durant. You know, the two small forwards that made free agent destinations that pretty much pissed off a lot of fans around the league and around the world for that matter. Um, Shout out to Fiona Miles. What's up? Appreciate you. I'm wondering. Teams need a core to compete for a championship. All right, again, shout out to Alex Sports. Go subscribe to his channel. Appreciate you. And LeBron James says, "Oh, I was just talking about you, LeBron." He says, "I had a good time with the Heat and the Cavs." All right, there you go. All right, so let's get to the Boston Celtics, the quote-unquote first created super team, right? Now, in talking about this team, here's the issue with the Boston Celtics. Did they have a big three? Absolutely. But what people fail to understand, and hi Fiona, appreciate you coming to the stream. The thing is with the Boston Celtics is people has just made it seem like if this basketball team was one of the best teams ever assembled, you know, ever. Now, Paul Pierce was on the team. Ray Allen was with the Seattle Supersonics. KG was with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Remember, KG, with the exception of his '04 Minnesota Timberwolves, he had played on pretty mostly not so great basketball teams. They was able to win 40 to 50, 45 to anywhere from like 44 to 45 to 47, 48 games to 50 games a year. He ends up getting traded to Boston. But how did they come together? It wasn't one of those things where KG called up Paul Pierce and KG called up Ray Allen and said, let's all team up. That's not what happened, which is what a lot of fans get confused about. They get confused about it to this day. Danny Ainge traded for Ray Allen. He traded for Ray Allen. That's how Ray Allen became a Boston Celtic. Then they traded Kevin Garnett to the Boston Celtics to become the big three. At the time, KG was, I believe he was 31 years old. But at this point, KG already had 13 years in the league. This is a veteran. Not he was already over a decade. You look at Ray Allen. Ray Allen, despite the fact that even if he was in his early 30s, Ray Allen also had 11 seasons in the league. So Ray Allen was entering his 12th season. Paul Pierce, this was his 10th NBA season. So when you look at their big three, they were loaded with experience, y'all. People are just gonna look at it and say, "Oh man, they had all these All-Star appearances, and they all made the All-Star team in 2008." But what people fail to realize is all of these three players, their core, they had already 10 plus years of experience in the NBA. Um, so let me just go into the chat real quick and salute to everybody. Karan says MJ had a core with the Bulls. You can't complain on LeBron or others having a couple of good All Stars. I'm trying to differentiate what's homegrown and what's player created. This is the difference. This is the difference that I'm trying to show. And thank you, Fiona, for saying that you can hear me. Again, smash the like and that subscribe. So getting back to the big three, the big three was formed by the front office. Okay, G Money, we're not gonna go into this thing with the whole teams. Just leave it. Leave it at that. Just leave it. We're not going into that. Because you like to start that and then try to get the chat all fired up. We're not getting into that today. So getting back to what I was saying, this is how they formed together. It was through trades. Paul Pierce was already on the team. Boston was a younger team. Rajon Rondo, I believe, was in his rookie year at the time. Kendrick Perkins was a rookie also. They only won 24 games the previous year. You bring Ray Allen, you bring another wing player to help supplement Paul Pierce. Then Rajon Rondo becomes your starting point guard. Then you bring in Kevin Garnett. So you have three all-star players who have 10 plus years of experience on your team. Then on top of that, then you complement the pieces with a PJ Brown, Sam Cassell, Tony Allen, James Posey, Eddie House, Sam Cassell. Obviously, you got the White Mamba, Brian Scalabrine. You got Scott Pollard, who was on that championship team, Leon Poe. So once you put all these pieces together, you're talking about the best defense, one of the best defenses ever for one season in NBA history. They go from 24 wins to 66 wins in 1 year. And then the next thing you know, Boston goes to the NBA Finals. They struggled on their way to get there because they went up against an A-seeded Atlanta Hawks team, right? That took them to 7 games. You look at the Cavaliers with LeBron James. This is Cleveland LeBron before he went to go join Bosh and Wade, as you guys see in the thumbnail. But even he himself, LeBron with a good defensive Cavaliers team. Not as talented, obviously, not as talented, not as deep, but and then remember they did make a trade for Ben Wallace and they made a trade for Wally Szczerbiak and for Delonte West to try to bolster their lineup. But even then, they pushed this same Boston Celtics team to 7 games. On top of the fact that, if y'all remember, Boston averaged 100 points per game in the regular season. That Cavaliers defense, one of the best defenses in the league during the late 2000s, they held Boston to 84 points per game. That was 16 below their season average, folks. And because of that, the Celtics really struggled to beat an 8th seed and then a 4th seeded Cleveland Cavaliers team in the NBA playoffs. And then they beat them in 7 games. Then they go to the Eastern Conference Finals, and then they go up against the Detroit Pistons. Not the same Detroit Pistons team, but still a good enough Piston team, to be able to compete, right? So despite that, Boston beats them in 6, and then they meet Kobe and the Lakers in the NBA Finals. And so what happens is they end up beating Kobe and the Lakers in 6, and this is with the Lakers, as good as they were, and the big Pau Gasol trade, they didn't have Andrew Bynum to kind of complement Gasol to be able to go up against both Perkins and Garnett. Then they were also missing Trevor Ariza. Actually, no, Trevor Ariza did play, but Trevor Ariza was just coming off an injury, so Trevor Ariza was not 100%, but he still played. And they was able to take Boston to 6 games. LA probably takes them to 7 if it wasn't for that that game 4 was the biggest game of the series because Boston came back from a 24-point deficit and was able to take a 3-1 lead in that series. So that was big. That was big. So then Boston, obviously, they lose game 5. In game 6, they win. They win by 39 points, which I believe is the largest blowout. And then, actually, it's the second biggest blowout. I think it's the largest blowout in a clinching game in NBA Finals history. The record from largest margin of victory is still held by the '98 Bulls against the Utah Jazz in Game 3. They won 96-54. That was a 42-point loss by the Jazz. Again, smash the like, hit that subscribe as you guys come in. So now Boston wins their championship. It was a collection of veteran players. And if you look at the big three that was together, 10 plus years of experience from each of these guys. Garnett won in his 13th season. Ray Allen won in his 12th season. Pierce won in his 10th season. It was a great defensive team. They played well together under head coach Doc Rivers. But I wouldn't consider Boston a super team because what preceded was they could have been a dynasty. But the injury, as G Money said in 2009, changed everything. Kevin Garnett goes down with that knee injury, and instead of Boston possibly repeating, and let's not forget, Rajon Rondo, who was the point guard, second-year player, playing the point guard, playing with these 3 future Hall of Famers. Now, people would just look at it as, well, they're 3 future Hall of Famers, but what I'm telling you is those guys formed together. And remember, KG and Ray Allen were number 1 options at one point, but they all sacrificed. Pierce was still the man on the team. If you look at KG and Ray Allen, their scoring dipped below 20 points. Ray Allen averaged 26 points per game, which was a career high the year before he joined Paul Pierce. But he sacrificed his game as soon as he joined, and he became more of a kind of a spot-up shooter, occasionally put the ball on the floor type of player. Kevin Garnett was doing more dirty work, and he actually became more defensive-oriented and still had his moments where he could still put on big buckets, still put on get you baskets. But he wasn't prime KG. Still a productive Kevin Garnett, but not prime Kevin Garnett. So that was the difference. And shout out to Michael Jordan. He says he's trying to build the Hornets into a super team. It's not going well, but I'm wondering if these are. I've had LeBron James and I've had Michael Jordan on my channel. Funny, but salute to you both. Appreciate you guys. You guys are the two most talked about among the sports media. But I appreciate you guys taking the time to come on the Lewis Sports Network. Truly appreciate that. So yeah, KG's injury changed everything. The Lakers ended up winning the title, and then they changed their team a little bit. They get Rasheed Wallace in there. Nate Robinson's on the team. The 2010 Celtics go to 7 games with the Lakers. Kind of fast forward, and then what happens is Kendrick Perkins tears his ACL in Game 6. But things would have been a little bit different had they won against LA. That would have been their second title in 3 years, and then as G Money kind of said, if you go back to 2009, they possibly could have been a three-peat if things kind of went their way, you know. Um, but they actually would have been the first veteran team, like real veteran team, to three-peat. And let me see. Ram says, "Are you kidding?" He says, "I like Devontae Graham and Miles Bridges on the Hornets." Oh yeah, absolutely. Those are two young, talented kids. I like them a lot, especially Devontae Graham. I see potential all-star with him. Again, guys, smash that like and hit that subscribe. Lewis Sports Network coming back at you after a day off. I'm back at it, and I truly appreciate you guys coming through. Okay, so now once 2010 is over, obviously we go now to the big three heat. That's Wade, Bosh, and LeBron James. You're talking three players. You're talking about three players. See, this is the difference now. You had a potential dynasty that raves about their one championship in 2008, like they won three in Boston. To now, Wade, how old is Dwayne Wade? 28 years old. Chris Bosh, how old is Chris Bosh? 26 years old. How old is LeBron James? 25 years old. So basically, ladies and gentlemen, 28, 26, 25. None of these guys, none of these guys have 10 plus years in the league. They're all from the same draft class, and they're all in their prime. Well, LeBron was starting to enter his prime. Wade was in his prime, and Bosh was also pretty much in his prime. Uh, you're talking about, again, LeBron, number one pick, Dwayne Wade, fifth pick, Chris Bosh, number four. Chris Bosh, fourth in the league in PER in 2010. Dwayne Wade, second in the league in PER in 2010. LeBron James led the league in PER in 2010. LeBron James just came off back-to-back 60-win seasons, back-to-back MVP awards as the number one seed on Cleveland. So all three of them won Olympic gold medals together in Beijing in 2008. So when you consider all of that, D Wade, All NBA player, Chris Bosh, All NBA player, Wade, Finals MVP in 2006. Chris Bosh led his team to the playoffs with the Toronto Raptors. LeBron led the Cavaliers to the NBA Finals in 2007. So when you consider all those factors, guys, that's why I say that when they form together in their prime, it's different from Boston because Wade was a free agent, Chris Bosh was a free agent, and LeBron James was a free agent. Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett both were traded to Boston. They were both traded there to improve the Boston Celtics, for them to be able to get ring number 17. The Miami Heat were all free agents and joined up together. There's a difference. So when people try to go with the whole first super team stuff like that, and shout out to Bookie Allen. He says, I consider OKC a super team because Harden never was an all star and never started on that roster. Okay. Terry Rozier's kind of weird. So I'm wondering if they're both the same person. Boston could have made more NBA finals if the big three did not exist. Well, I don't know how much more because you have to also remember they were getting older, so I don't know how much longer they would have been able to do that. The Heat were supposed to have a death grip on the league, but they underachieved, and I do agree with that, G Money. That's absolutely correct. They really should have had a death grip on the NBA because when they teamed up, all those accomplishments that I just named, folks. And by the way, let's also try to get rid of this narrative. I keep hearing people saying that when LeBron joined the Miami Heat, that this was not a playoff team. That's absolutely false. When LeBron joined the Heat, they were not a championship team. So I do agree with most people. when LeBron joined a non-championship team at first when he got there to Miami. But to say that they weren't a playoff team is ridiculous because with Eric Spoelstra, he already had 2 years of coaching experience with Wade, and with Wade as his best player, they were able to take the Heat into back-to-back playoff appearances in 2009 and 2010. And Wade had two of his best seasons. 2009 is probably Wade's best overall season. He was an MVP candidate for me, and you could possibly make the case that he should have been MVP in 2009, but it probably was not going to happen because if you look at the MVP criteria in NBA history, if you lead your teams to one of the top two records in the league, then yes, you would have been the MVP that season. Oh, no, I'm not worried about that. And shout out to you, Phoenix Machine. Appreciate it. Shout out to Joel. Appreciate you. Shout out to Poseidon Swag. He says Wade and LeBron was gonna up no matter what. Yeah, yeah, I get it, Phoenix. Thank you for letting me know. I already knew. Uh, they were gonna be a bull. Exactly, exactly. So yeah, shout out to you, Phoenix Machine. Appreciate it for coming through. Yeah, I already knew. Um, yeah, so now it's like they set the world by storm. Everybody knows the historic decision that was aired on TV for 1 hour. LeBron makes his decision. Wade and Bosh are now commemorates of South Beach, along with LeBron James. They come into Wade County, and LeBron obviously makes his famous not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six, but seven NBA championships. And like G Money said, supposed to have a stranglehold in the league. He says, I don't think OKC wasn't a super team. Harden wasn't a superstar, I think he meant. Okay. So again, guys, smash the like, hit that subscribe for the Lewis Sports Network. So yeah, getting back on this. So they form, right? These guys come together, and once they come together, this is another narrative that I also have to eliminate. The whole 2011 MVP, where people felt that LeBron James, and I'm going to make a future video where I felt like LeBron should only have 3 MVPs and not 4. And that has something to do with the 2012 season. The reason being that LeBron James did not win MVP in 2011 is because, for one, his own teammate Chris Bosh came out and says that he would have picked LeBron because obviously it's his teammate and he's played well. But Derrick Rose, from the outset, he said he wanted to be the MVP of this league. Nobody saw the Bulls as a championship contending team in 2011. They won 62 games with first-time head coach Tom Thibodeau. His second best player, Luol Deng, is the only other player really scoring in double digits. Carlos Boozer misses 23 games with an injury. Joakim Noah missed 34 games as well. That's a combined nearly 60 games of the season. That's almost 2/3 of this. That's already over 2/3 of the season, folks. And Derrick Rose plays MVP basketball the entire year. Sure, LeBron shot 51% from the field. He averaged 26, 7, and 7, I believe, were his numbers. But the thing was, he was already on a team that was expected to win in Miami. And Miami had the fourth best record in the NBA. Fourth best in the NBA. 58 and 24. The Chicago Bulls had the best record in the entire NBA. The Spurs were second with 61 wins in 2011. So when you consider the circumstances that Rose had to play with, that's why Derrick Rose won the MVP. I don't want people telling me, oh, but LeBron had better stats. No, 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 no. What Derrick Rose was able to do with the team that he had, being a defensive-oriented team, and he is their best offensive option, they really didn't have a go-to second option. And their injuries to their bigs, and for them to still win 62 games, and he was the one constant, and Derrick Rose even improved his defense that season. That's the reason that he won the MVP, and it was well deserved. LeBron definitely deserves to be in the conversation, but he was not the MVP in 2011. And that's why I'm coming out with a future video on why LeBron should be a 3-time MVP and not a 4-time MVP. And Poseidon says, you saw Jimmy Roller video on NBA Mr. Orange True? No, I haven't seen that. Shout out to Ron. Appreciate you coming through in the building, man. The 1960s Lakers was a super team. Are you talking about the late 60s with Will Chamberlain and Jerry West and Elgin Baylor? Because that was a super team. Miami thought they were better than everyone, but they got challenged in the playoffs. The Lakers had Goodrich, Wilt West, and Elgin Baylor. At one point, they did. That's right. Nobody talks about Gil Goodrich. He's one of the more underrated players in NBA history. So that's a good point you mentioned, Poseidon. The East has started to get weaker during the Big Three Heat era. Actually, no. The East has been weak for a very long time. It got even more weaker. It got even more weaker during the Big Three era. It was already starting to be weak. But no. People need to stop with the Mavs sweeping Kobe narrative because the Heat had the most talent in the league. Miami was supposed to roll through everyone. So if y'all remember, the Heat had the fourth best record in the league. They went 58 wins. I remember that the Heat got off to a 9-8 start. Then they win 22 of their next 23. They played solid basketball the rest of the way, and then they end up winning 58 wins. First season, they beat the Sixers in 5. They beat the Celtics in 5. They beat the Bulls in 5. For a team that LeBron has said in the interview with Steve Smith that they weren't expected to go to the NBA Finals, the Heat finished 12-3 entering the NBA Finals, and they were the favorites against the Dallas Mavericks. Against the Dallas Mavericks, they were the favorites. There's no slouch on Dallas because they played very well as a veteran team under Rick Carlisle. They beat a very good Portland team that had an injured Brandon Roy who had his moments in that series, but unfortunately he had to retire due to the chronic knee injuries that he had, the chronic knee pain. So that stinks. Then obviously they swept the Kobe Lakers. A sweep is a sweep. The Lakers should have won the first game, but they blew it. Dallas beat LA in game two. LA should have won game three, but Dallas came back from I think it was a 15-point deficit to beat LA, and then they just demolished them in game four. So LA, I'm not giving LA a pass because they had two opportunities to win. They didn't have a, LA was not deep with their bench. Uh, I know Kobe obviously didn't look, there were moments where Kobe didn't look like himself. Um, but there's no excuse. Dallas put a spanking and they put a whooping on LA. So they beat them. They swept them. Uh, 4-zip. Then they come back and they beat a young OKC team. OKC team, the next three players that I'm gonna talk about for the next season. And next thing you know, Dallas is in the NBA Finals against a very talented Miami Heat team. And let me just go. Let me just go into the chat. G Money says that Derrick Rose clearly deserved the 2011 MVP because Chicago had limited depth and he made them a 62-win team. Facts. Facts, G Money. Facts. Ron says what Derrick Rose did in Chicago in 2011 was the most exciting thing that they saw Chicago since Jordan. That's right. And what people also forget was when the Bulls were celebrating their 20th anniversary for their NBA championship. This was during the regular season game. Michael Jordan was putting all this pressure on Derrick Rose. I don't know if you guys remember this. This was in the 20th anniversary 1991 championship ceremony. Jordan was saying that Derrick Rose was going to lead the Bulls to eight championships. And I'm like, Michael, why are you putting that kind of pressure on Derrick Rose? This is like really the first season that the Bulls actually look like a legitimate contender. But it's like you don't put that kind of pressure on that kid. And and what happened was is that Derrick Rose kind of got shut down a little bit. I thought it was a collective effort on the Heat. I'm not saying LeBron did a very good job on D Rose, but you also have a very good elite defender in Dwayne Wade to help. When you have two wings that are obviously bigger than Derrick Rose, they make it harder for him to see over the top. It makes it that much harder. So again, guys, smash that like and hit that subscribe. Shout out to everybody that's in the chat. We're 47 subscribers away from that 1K. I truly appreciate you guys, for helping me to get to this point, and that's everybody. Poseidon says, why is the East always weak? It's bad ownership and with GM. I mean, it goes with bad drafting, it goes with poor scouting. It's a lot. A lot of factors go into it. Curry walked so Trey Young could run. Okay. D Rose would have gone to the finals if he had not gotten injured. Well, if he didn't have to deal with the Miami Heat, I think that would have. I think that would have happened. Right. So yeah, Dallas they were the underdogs. Miami had a 2-1 lead. This is where LeBron really not playing at his best. Wade was killing the Mavs. Everybody knows what happened. The Heat lost the last three games in historic fashion. If people remember that game too, 15-point lead. Dallas went on a 22 to 5 run to win the ball game, including Dirk Nowitzki uh, getting the winning basket in game two, the go-ahead basket, which ended up being the game-winning basket, taking Chris Bosh off the dribble on that half spin, and it was unbelievable. Shout out to Winetta Thomas, appreciate you. She says the East ain't so weak these days. It's not as weak as it once was. It's still weaker than the West, but not as weak as it once was. Uh, so again, shout out to Winetta Thomas. And that was the series where Dirk outscored LeBron by 41 points in the fourth quarter, 52 to 11 is the total. If you do the average, if you do the average through 6 games, that's almost an average of 9 points per fourth quarter. East is improving a bit. Yep, I agree. He says the Thunder didn't have that killer mentality to finish games. And Ron is in agreement with Winetta. All right. So yeah, this was a super team that was put together by free agency. This while the Boston Celtics were free agency, well, were okay. Dirk outscored Braun 62 to 11 in the fourth quarter. I believe it's 52 to 11. Oh no, wait. No, it is 62 to 11. That's my fault. Yeah, because Wade and LeBron. Wait a minute. No, actually no. It was 62 to 18. That was the total. That was the total because it took Wade's points and LeBron's points to match Dirk's points. It was 62 to 18. I remember now because Wade had 44 and LeBron had 18 for the 6 games. I remember. I remember now. It was 62. It was 62 to 18, not 11. You think LeBron choked in 2011 because of pressure or lack of experience? I wouldn't say lack of experience because he already had went to the finals before with the Cavaliers. So I wouldn't say it was a lack of experience. I think it was more so of I think it was more so of a little bit of pressure. It's just one game out of 82. Plus Thunder were on a back to back. Well, actually, no, they're talking about the postseason, Karam. They're not talking about the Thunder. Yeah. So when you look at the NBA Finals, the Heat failed miserably. And they lose to Dallas. The very next year, obviously the Heat win. It's a lockout year. LeBron wins the MVP. The Heat face Boston. They played. Who was their first round opponent? Oh, the Knicks. Then from the Knicks they played the Pacers, and then from the Pacers they played the Boston Celtics. Everybody remember that historic Game 6. when LeBron puts the best, in my opinion, still the greatest game of his career: 45 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists in an elimination game to keep Miami season alive. Because people forget that if LeBron does not perform like that, the big three is probably broken. The big three is probably broken. So they win the championship. They beat Boston in 7 games, and then they go on to beat OKC in 5 games, and then win the NBA championship. And then LeBron gets his first ring. Wade gets his second ring. Chris Bosh gets his first ring. 2013, they have a historic season. LeBron wins MVP again. Number one seed in the entire league, 66 wins, 27-game win streak, second longest in NBA history. Face the Bucks, face the Bulls, face the Pacers, and then they play the Spurs. They beat them in 7 games. Everybody remembers that historic. Shout out to Anonymous Sports, appreciate you. Shout out to Raduni, appreciate you coming through. Again, guys, smash the like, hit the subscribe, and make sure you guys are sharing this on social media. And this is where Ray Allen comes in. Obviously, he leaves the Celtics in the off season and goes to Miami. They have Shane Battier, they have Mike Miller, they have a lot of very good 3-point shooters. Yes, they're veterans, but very good 3-point shooters. Miami wins their second straight title after Ray Allen hits arguably the most clutch shot in NBA history in Game 6. But I have to also give credit to LeBron James because he struggled in that series. The only 2 good games he really played, I believe, was Game 4 and Game 7 in terms of shooting the ball. Game 6, he had a 32-point triple double in Game 6 that went to overtime. He did score 16 points in the fourth quarter, so got to give him credit for that. He did bring the Heat back into the game, but people also forget that LeBron had some crucial turnovers that almost cost him. Fortunately for him, the Spurs did not take advantage at the free throw line, so that's why they were still in this game. And Ray Allen hits that big shot. The key thing was Greg Popovich should have never sat Tim Duncan. That was the biggest mistake. He should have never sat Tim Duncan. Had that never happened, then I definitely for sure think San Antonio Spurs win their fifth NBA championship. And then if you want to go on hypotheticals, they possibly go back to back. But sometimes you never know how these other seasons turn out. And that would have took away the Heat's chances of repeating, and they actually would have underachieved even more, folks. If you think about it, because their championships would have happened in even years, in 2012 and 2014, possibly. Let's say if they run it back and they get there. Right. And let's go into the chat. Money says he felt bad for the Celtics and Thunder losing to the Heat in 2012. Spurs also could have won Game 7. They did have a chance. If LeBron didn't win Game 6, he would have been probably ranked as low top 15. Nah, the fans would have still put him up in the top 10 regardless. It would have been looked at different. I think LeBron didn't do well in the 2011 finals because for the first time he was playing in the LeBron system and he was a little lost. Or I guess it was that he was not playing. He didn't get to play the LeBron system and was probably lost. That could be the case. Yeah, Kawhi, and you could even say Manu Ginobili also choked at the end too with those free throws. Manu Ginobili played a terrible series in 2013 against the Heat. They did redeem themselves. So the Heat are winning back-to-back titles. You're probably thinking, can LeBron be part of his first three-peat? 2014, the Heat kind of go on cruise control. They win 54 games, good enough to be second in the league, second in the East, I should say. Uh, they faced the Bobcats, the Nets, And the Pacers, they knocked them all off. They go to the NBA Finals for a fourth straight year. Now you're asking yourself, does LeBron make history? Does he win three straight NBA titles? You're looking at a successful title run, and this is despite the fact that Dwayne Wade is starting to look hobbled in 2014. But it doesn't happen. They lose by a record finals margin by 18.7 points per game. We already know about, all the stats. We already saw what happened. Uh, the Spurs win in 5 games. They get their revenge. They had the league's best record that season at 62 wins. Kawhi Leonard, who I think was solid, I think he was not that good in the first 2 games of the series, but he really turned it around in games 3, 4, and 5. He was really looking like the best player in the last 3 games of the series. Kawhi Leonard ends up winning Finals MVP. The Spurs win the NBA title, the 5th championship in their franchise history. And you guys have to remember, after LeBron signed that 7-year contract with an opt-out after year 4, LeBron decides he's going back to Cleveland, and that pretty much ends the Big Three era for the Miami Heat. Now, but that was a super team that was created through free agency, and this was prime. And the network, if you guys saw the decision, was saying that this was the first ever player-created super team. It's just people try to deny it. People have just gone and said that the Boston Celtics, and I'm like, the Boston Celtics are not. It's a bit different with them because, one, they were older. Neither Bosh nor Wade nor LeBron were even 10-year veterans at this point yet. They were 7-year veterans. They just had finished their 7 seasons, so they were all entering their 8th, and they were all under the age of 30. The Boston Celtics were 30 and older. Now, you people are saying, well, that's still their prime, but the thing is, how long was their prime going to be? At least with Bosh, Wade, and LeBron, they could have competed for years to come. So they had like about a 5-year window. That wasn't really the case with Boston. They had to kind of take advantage of their opportunity now. And so getting older and the injuries and going up against younger teams, as you saw with the Big Three, that hurt Boston. It hurt them. And Poseidon says, how did Kawhi win the MVP? I think it should have gone to Tony Parker. Well, somebody's going to have to pull up Tony Parker's numbers. Some people thought that Tim Duncan could have possibly gotten it, but Kawhi Leonard was arguably the most impactful player in the entire series other than LeBron James. You think the Heat would be a title contender if the Heat had stayed together in 2015? It's possible because LeBron is still in his prime. Wade had his more better if they each. The funny thing is that with them together, Bosh, Wade, and LeBron actually had their most efficient seasons together in the Big Three, and nobody really talks about that. Together, it's a reason why LeBron was averaging like 26, 27 points a game on very few shots. It's because he was on a team with a great player in Dwayne Wade and a pretty good player in Chris Bosh. So the distribution of shots, it was a little more balanced. Bosh was going to take less shots, obviously, because his role was different. And that's why I said when you look at Dwayne Wade, he was able to win with an aging big man and Shaq, and then he was able to win with a dominant wing in LeBron James. Yet Wade doesn't get enough credit for that either. If you look at the way, that's why I said that I kind of compare him in the sense to Kobe. The only thing is Wade did it with 2 different positions. Kobe did it with also with 2 different positions. Um, one power forward, one center. But Wade is also another player that you could say won championships with different rosters too. So Wade doesn't get enough credit for that either, and he definitely should. Ron says the way that the Spurs moved that ball in the 2014 finals was just crazy. Yeah, their ball movement was on God, like just godly. But yeah, the Big Three Heat era compared to the Boston Celtics, when we're talking about super team, is this team was put together by trade with Paul being the constant. Wade and LeBron and Bosh all opted out of their free agency, opted into their contracts. Well, mostly Wade and LeBron since they talked about it. they became free agents in 2010 and all came together when originally it was supposed to be Melo, but it ended up being Bosh. They go to 4 finals together, but they only win 2 championships. Now you look at Boston, they go to 2 finals and only win one. They really should have went to 3 straight, but it didn't happen because of KG's injury in '09. The big three Heat should have won at least 3 out of 4 championships. They won. They lost in their first time together, and they lost in their last time together. They won in between. At least they got to repeat, because I think had they not repeated, even though they won 2 championships, that actually would have made them even underachieve even more. And it's not easy. Don't get me wrong. It's not easy to win a championship. It's very difficult. But I just think the expectations that you have, uh, especially with what you form, the key thing is, as they mentioned, it's your core. I didn't know how long Boston's core was going to last. When you look at the Heat, they were a much younger core. But Wade's body did start to break down. So that's the end of the big three Heat era. Now, let's get to the next era. Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. Now, the big three OKC Thunder did not last long, which is what which people fail to understand too. They fail to understand with that because this is a team that all of their players were drafted. That's Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook. They were all drafted. James Harden, Russell Westbrook, all the first round picks. Kevin Durant was the number 2 pick for the Seattle Supersonics back then, number 2 in the '07 draft. They grew together, and in just 4 short years together, 3 years in the league for Westbrook, 3 years in the league, 4 years in the league for Westbrook, 3 years in the league for Harden, and 5 years in the league for KD. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they go to the Western, they lose in the first round against the Lakers in 6 games. The 2010 team that won 50 games. The very next year, they end up trading, Jeff Green to Boston. Harden gets a more prominent role. He becomes their 6th man. Harden starts balling like crazy. OKC makes it all the way to the Western Conference Finals against the Mavs. They beat the Nuggets in 7 games, and then they beat the Grizzlies in 7 games in some classic, playoff series. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to Ryan. Appreciate you. And Poseidon says, it's funny how no teams like to trade players with super teams. Funny. What's up, man? Shout out to Ryan. Appreciate you. And G Money says to me, if you draft 3 players on the team, it's not a super team. Shout out to Ryan, man. Appreciate it. Ron says, how do you think the Miami Big Three would have looked had Melo went there instead of Bosh? I think it would have been a little more difficult because at least with Bosh helps you space the floor. Not saying that Melo can't do that, but I don't know if it would have worked out because Melo has to make sure that he gets his shots. He has to make sure that he gets his shots. Now, I don't know. Would he have listened to LeBron? That's a good question. Who knows? Who really knows? It would be like also, can Eric Spoelstra really influence Melo to play team basketball, with the style of play? So that's an interesting point. That is really an interesting point, and one has to say you really don't know. The 2008 finals could have gone down to 7 games if it weren't for Game 4 mismanagement by the Lakers. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier in the video. Actually. Oh, they beat them in 5? My bad. I'm thinking 7 games. That's my fault. I forgot. See, it's been that long ago. G-Money's got that photographic memory. See what I'm talking about? There you go. All right, so they lose to the Mavs in 5 games in the lockout season as well. The very next year, the Thunder have the 3rd best record in the NBA, right? The Bulls and the Spurs have the top 2 records with the exact same record, 50 and 16. They both look like they were on pace to have another 60-win season. OKC finishes third in the league with 47 wins, 47-19. They look like they were going to have 56 wins. So in the first round, they sweep Dallas 4-zip. Second round, they face the Lakers. Kevin Durant hits that big three-pointer right in the face of Metta World Peace in Game 4. The Thunder wrap up the series in 5. Then in the Western Conference Finals, they beat the number one team, tied for first in the entire league in the San Antonio Spurs, and beat them in 6 games after losing the first 2 games in San Antonio. And who was the difference in that series? The beard, James Harden. He was the difference. And because he was the difference, guess what happens? The Thunder win Game 5 on the road, and then they close them out in 6 games. And the way OKC moved the ball in those 2012 Western Conference Finals had you thinking they were the San Antonio Spurs. Ryan says if Melo was a part of the Heat, he would have had to be the number one guy on the bench. No, I think he starts, but I just think the way that they would have done their offense would have been probably the most interesting thing. And the thing is also Melo doesn't defend consistently, so I wonder how that would have been also. That's why I don't think it would have worked out. 2016 OKC was the best version of the Thunder. Now, 2012 they go to the NBA Finals. Game 1 in their building. After being down by double digits to start the game, and people forget about this OKC team, they always got the slow starts, especially that 2012 OKC team in the playoffs. They beat the Heat by 15. Yeah, I feel like Sam Presti is arguably the worst and best GM at the same time. And for some reason, in a way, I will say he's the best, in my opinion, at drafting players. So him and his scouting team, they definitely can see talent. When you look at KD, Russ, and Harden. Game 2, they were trailing mostly by double digits. They start to come back. They were down by as many as 2. Kevin Durant gets fouled. It doesn't get called when he was clearly fouled by LeBron James. Next thing you know, the Heat win on the road by 4. Then in Miami, OKC was in a couple of close games that they ended up not winning. If you look at the free throw disparity in that series, Joel Anthony actually shot more free throws than Kevin Durant. That's crazy to me, but it happened. OKC ends up losing in 5 games. Now you're saying to yourself, for a young team in 4 years in Oklahoma City to get to the NBA Finals, you're saying to yourself they might go back, right? Well, things start to change. They decide not to pay James Harden, so he ends up going to the Houston Rockets. First year without James Harden, Thunder win 60 games, number 1 in the Western Conference. Russell Westbrook is lost in Game 2 after tearing his meniscus against the Houston Rockets. So they lose him for the postseason. Kevin Durant carries them to a 6-series win in the first round, but then lose in 5 to the Memphis Grizzlies in 2013. I think a healthy Westbrook and the Spurs and the Thunder are re-meeting in the Western Conference Finals, just this time without James Harden, which would have hurt. Ron says that Thunder team was a monster, but they were just a bit precocious. I agree. That baby Thunder, yeah, they had the potential to be pretty special. No, I met him playing with the Heat bench players. He would be the ball handler to officiate the offense when LBJ and Wade are resting. Oh, I feel you. Got you. Now I see what you mean. After they lose, Harden didn't they thought Lamb was going to be the replacement? Well, they were supposed to, but I felt like that's where Scott Brooks to me failed as a coach. That to me is where he failed as a coach. Rode his starters. He rode his starters so much. He really didn't have an offense. He let Russell and Kevin play my turn, your turn offense, which will win you a lot of regular season games because of their talent. But in the playoffs, it's not really playing team basketball. But when you also look at the Thunder, they had some bad circumstances. You had obviously the meniscus to Russell Westbrook. Then the very next year, Russell only plays 36 games. Kevin Durant ends up helping the Thunder get 59 wins, which was second in the NBA. Second in the NBA in wins at 59 and 23. They go to the Western Conference Finals, but they lose to the Spurs, who are the eventual champions in 6 games. Then in 2015, Kevin Durant misses 55 games with a foot injury. And then OKC misses the playoffs due to losing the tiebreaker against the New Orleans Pelicans with second-year player, actually third-year player, Anthony Davis. Okay, going back into the comment section. Ryan says, I think OKC would have swept Boston in the finals if they played, watched others instead of the Heat versus OKC in the finals. I disagree. Boston might have beat OKC due to more experience. The speed of OKC that year would have been too much. OKC would beat Boston in 6 games because of their explosiveness and pace. Boston Big Three would have been tired. I see your point, but I think Allen, Pearson, Garnett, and Rondo would have been inspired enough to win. I think OKC beats Boston because I just think that Boston would have not been able to deal with their youth and athleticism. They do have the experience, absolutely. Boston would have had to really slow the game down, and the Thunder would have just had to been able to keep up the pace. But the thing is, Kevin Durant was really starting to become almost damn near difficult to guard going one on one. You would have had to really challenge him, as a team because they really didn't have. Michael Petrus was probably the one defender they would have probably threw at KD, but KD could just shoot over the top of him. So they would have had to start to double Kevin Durant more. And what hurt OKC was not being able to surround Westbrook and Durant with shooters because of the fact that those guys could slash to the basket. So that really hurt. That really hurt them if they had more floor spacing, which is why you have to also accredit Kevin Durant to his greatness. This guy was able to shoot 50% on a very clogged space offense with a floor so poorly spaced. The man is able to do that. That's crazy. So getting back to OKC, 2016, they won 55 games on the first year head coach Billy Donovan. They blew 18 double-digit leads that year. That team is damn near challenging 70 wins. They damn for sure get 60. You would have had the Spurs, the Warriors, and the Thunder all at 60 plus wins in the Western Conference, which would have told you how weak is the East. Ah, ah. Poseidon says the 2011 Bulls versus the 2011 Thunder would have also been a pretty good finals. Yeah, because you would have gotten Derrick Rose going up against Russell Westbrook. It sucks that there was nobody to go up against Durant because that would have been really nice, and the Bulls did not have that. OKC would have beaten Chicago in 2011. That's I hmm. Honestly don't know. Maybe they could have. Plus, Durant would have destroyed Pierce. Pierce would have had to step up more if they were in the finals. And the thing is, Pierce is too slow to guard KD. I don't see it happening. KD's handles also improved too, so Paul Pierce would have been on skates a lot of times trying to guard KD. I think if the Thunder were bad in close games versus the Heat, and experienced and disciplined Celtics would have beaten them. Well, look at it this way: they lost in 7 games to them, so they were close. I don't think they would have been able to pull through. It would have been close though, but I don't. I still think the Heat beat Boston. OKC didn't have the shooting and execution to win. Doc is a better coach than Scott Brooks. And then obviously in 2016, OKC, I think they beat Dallas, and then they beat the Clippers, and then they faced the Golden State Warriors. Eventually, the team that we'll get to eventually. So OKC gets a 3-1 lead. Everybody knows the history. They blow the 3-1 lead. They lose the series to Golden State. Golden State goes on to the NBA Finals. And ladies and gentlemen, it is the end of the OKC era because KD is gone. Russell ends up going a couple of years later, getting traded to Houston to reunite with his tag team partner, James Harden, from their first stint with OKC, now in Houston. And the Big Three era of the Oklahoma City Thunder is no more. But what I wanted to tell you guys, ladies and gentlemen, is that Kevin Durant was drafted to a franchise. The Big Three OKC Thunder were all homegrown, manufactured, drafted to Seattle/OKC. Now, to the Cleveland Cavaliers, LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love. How did that happen? Well, if we go back to Wade, Bosh, and LeBron, LeBron ends up leaving after losing to San Antonio in 5 games. Kyrie Irving was supposed to, he signs a 5-year, $90 million contract. LeBron makes a decision. He announces he's back. He actually announced the decision on my birthday, which is how crazy that is, and decides to go back to Cleveland. There was already talks in the works that LeBron would not have gotten back had they not traded for Kevin Love because, remember, Kyrie was a #1 pick. So was Anthony Bennett, even though we know how that turned out. But the Cavaliers got 3 #1 picks in 4 years. 3 #1 picks in 4 seasons. What does that tell you? They drafted Wiggins at #1. And once they drafted Wiggins at #1, salute to you, Josh. Once they drafted Wiggins at #1, they used that as a trade package to get Kevin Love. And Kevin Love was a top 10 player in the NBA at the time. He was producing beast numbers. He's producing beast numbers. G Money says KD can't guard Paul Pierce too. Pierce would have been clutch too. KG would have destroyed Kendrick Perkins. Oh, well, I already know about KG and Perk. KD would have definitely had his issues with Paul Pierce, but not as bad as Paul Pierce would have had with KD though. I do agree with you, G Money. There were moments where Kevin Durant was just really not that good at defense. And I've heard people say, well, he didn't have to do that because he was on the Thunder where he had Serge Ibaka and he had Kendrick Perkins and those guys and Steven Adams. He already had a wall behind him. Well, that's why it says that's how important your perimeter defense should be. So that's why I said I don't really give Durant a pass. The only person that can really guard KD is Tony Allen. Yep. Tony Allen was the best defender. Not really. OKC beat San Antonio in the semis in 2016. Oh wait, I'm confusing. Oh no, I'm confusing. I'm confusing 2016 with 2014 when I said the with the Clippers. That's my fault. I confused 2014 with 2016. Thank you for the correction, G Money. Yeah, they in the semis they lost. They beat San Antonio in 6 games, and San Antonio had a 67-win season that season, while the Golden State Warriors had 73 wins. Imagine if Durant gets traded to the Rockets. Wow, I doubt it, but KD and H-Town would be crazy. Josh says hit that like button. Appreciate that, Josh the GOAT. Ron says what was crazy about OKC in 2016 is that they blew 18 or 19 double-digit leads going into the 4th quarter, which tells you that they had a chance to win 70 games that season. They were definitely getting over 60. It was supposed to be OKC and the Clippers Western Conference Showdown playoff battles, but because of the Clippers' curse and a hungry Golden State team on the rise improving every year, like OKC did in those years. Very good point, Ryan. OKC blew 13-point leads in Games 6 and 7 against Golden State, which is why they don't get a pass for 2016. Just like the 2018 Rockets, because I know G Money's gonna mention that, but that's why I said you had chances to win and you blew it. So anyway, that's the end of OKC. Going back to Cleveland. So let's see. People were saying that this was not a super team, obviously because Kyrie had not led a team to the playoffs. Kevin Love had not led Minnesota to the playoffs. The thing is, if you look at Kevin Love, he played in the Western Conference, and if you look at those Timberwolves, it shows you how they've been such a bad organization for so long. Because that same Kevin Garnett played in that bad organization as well. And unfortunately for Minnesota, they never really got the right pieces to complement players like Kevin Love and a guy like Kevin Garnett. So that's what we have to mention. But that doesn't mean that he wasn't balling. I mean, he averaged 26 and 13 the year before he left. After the year before he got traded to Cleveland for Andrew Wiggins. Okay, so people were expecting the Cavaliers to win the NBA championship. This is LeBron's second team. Uh, LeBron ends up going to four straight NBA final appearances. People are just saying that you can't take away from what LeBron has accomplished, and I said I agree with that to a certain extent. In order for LeBron's 8 straight finals streak, he had to do it with 2 different teams. It's not like if he did 8 straight with one team. I know that's not ever going to happen unless the East is that weak that you're just getting consistent cakewalks. But look, once you monopolize one, you monopolize the other. And it happened with the Heat for a good stretch. And roster changes are always happening. The Cavs had the most talent of any team in the conference. That's why they never really. So when it comes back to the MVPs, it's ridiculous how people say that LeBron should be an 8 or 9 time MVP winner. But the problem is, as much as LeBron could put up some really nice stats, the problem is his teams underperformed in the regular season. And I'm talking about his second stint, not his first stint. Because the first stint, 66 wins and 61 wins, number one in the league, he deserved the MVP. That team was not that good in Minnesota. That organization has been bad for a long time. That Kevin Garnett cursed out the freaking owner. Is Aldridge a Hall of Famer? I don't think so. OKC was fun, but they choked a lot. Yep. The fact that the fact that OKC had Golden State with Westbrook is a testament to that team. OKC had them. OKC wins the chip if they beat Golden State that year. I don't think so. I think the Cavs get them again. This time, LeBron being on the Cavs. Kevin Love averaged monster numbers that 1 year, averaging most rebounds in Minnesota. The Cavs were a borderline super team to me. Big three Cavs kind of underachieved. Kind of is an understatement because they had a young Kyrie and the whole team was inexperienced. Money, very true. That's fine. Cavs arguably had 3 superstars and no, wait. Slow your roll, slow your roll. LeBron was the superstar. I will say he had 2 all-star teammates behind him in Kyrie and Kevin Love, but I don't say Kyrie is a borderline superstar. Love is not a superstar. He's an all-star. But to me, they were still kind of a super team because the crazy part is, even when they got off to a slow start in 2014, 2015, LeBron was not shooting the ball well. Obviously, everybody knows about their whole biogenesis stuff. He only played 69 games that season, so he missed 13. He took a personal 2 weeks off. I think the Cavs would have beaten the Thunder. I agree with you, G Money. Excuse me. Smash the like button. Hit that subscribe button for the Lewis Sports Network. Appreciate it. We got 26 likes and 11 people watching. Appreciate that, guys. Appreciate that. So yeah, like when we really look at this team with the 2015 Cavaliers, they had to make a trade to get J.R. Smith, Iman Shumpert, and Timofey Mozgov because they started the season 18 and 19. People forget that. They finished up winning 35 of their last 45 games after the trade. So once that happened, next thing you know, the Cavaliers won 53 games. They sweep a not really good Boston Celtics team that just made the playoffs. Everybody remembers the game 3 when Kelly Olynyk ends up separating Kevin Love's shoulder where he tears his labrum and he was out for the entire postseason. Uh, Kyrie Irving is dealing with a patella tendon in his knee pretty much most of the playoffs, but it doesn't change the fact that the Cavs then beat the Chicago Bulls in 6 games. People think that the game 4 was actually the key to that series after Derrick Rose just hit a game winner, LeBron hit the game winner back, but David Blatt should have been called for a technical because he didn't have timeout. But that doesn't get called. The series is tied. The Cavs win in 6. Then in the Eastern Conference Finals against the 60-win Atlanta Hawks team, ladies and gentlemen, I said that team was not a championship team from when I saw them. And people are saying, oh, wow, he beat the 60-win Atlanta Hawks. They were not a serious contender. They were not a serious contender. Kyle Korver, Jeff Teague, Paul Millsap, Al Horford. All of those guys made all-star teams. But I don't consider Jeff Teague really an all-star. Neither do I do Kyle Korver. Al Horford and Paul Millsap for bigs, they get all-star nods because of this era. But I don't think that they're all-stars normally in any other era, to be honest. They're good players, don't get me wrong. Very good players. But I just don't see them as all-star caliber players. That's just my personal opinion. Um, but yeah, but at the end of the day, that was another full all-star narrative. Shout out to Black Tiger, appreciate you. Shout out to Jay Jefferson, appreciate you. Thanks for God coming through. Again, continue to smash that like button. Hit that subscribe button for the Lewis Sports Network. Truly appreciate that. Josh says that the Cavs underachieved greatly. If the rest didn't intervene, they don't make it out the playoffs in 2016, 2015, 2018. Oh, it was game 4? I thought it was game 3. Man, G-Money, photographer memory is on point. I'm going to have to start rewatching all of these again. I feel like the refs already intervene every game no matter what. Look at the 2018 finals. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's a big call. Yeah, that was an overrated Atlanta Hawks team that won 60 games. I've been saying it for the longest. That team was overrated. Overrated. I'm not trying to hate on the players. I'm not. What Mike Budenholzer did, I salute him. They were a very good defensive team that season. Were the 2015 Hawks, but that team was not going anywhere. They were fortunate that they didn't lose to the Wizards in the second round, and the Nets took them to 6 games. They're Brooklyn. So that's why I said that if they face a team like the Cavs, I said that's a 4-game sweep. I said that. That was an overrated team. Facts, Jay. Facts, G Money. Homegrown is way better and natural. G Money, yep, that was the game I was thinking about with the Bulls and Black. 2018 finals were one-sided. Okay. The Hawks in 2015 was fool's gold. They had some good players that all maxed out that season and played in a good system. Thank you, sir. Thank you. This is what I'm saying. That team was not really seriously going to be a championship contender. I would have given the Cavs more credit. Now, you do have to be who's in front of you. But people were hyping this Hawks team like Nick Wright does all the goddamn time, that was a 60-win Hawks team. See, but he just leaves it at his narrative. He doesn't mention the fact that if you look at that team was not championship worthy. Has Jeff Teague made an All-Star team since 2015? And where did he make that All-Star team? In the Eastern Conference. He hasn't made one in the West. So that just lets you know. 2015 Hawks were the overrated one-hit wonders. Facts. Shout out to Speaking My Sports Talk. Appreciate you. That Hawks team think that they were the 2014 Spurs. Yo, shout out to the real self. Appreciate you. He says, where are the Spurs? Oh no, I'm saying. So we're looking at homegrown versus modern versus super teams. But I'm talking about the more recent ones. This is not like the 99 or the 2003, 2005, 2007 Spurs teams to really sell. I'm talking about, I decided to stay away from that. And I try to focus on the now because people have been talking about when it comes to this super team era, they have talked about how saying that Boston was really the first super team, and I had to explain that. I had to explain how they formed because people are making it seem like if these other teams just assemble together, which is not the case. When you look at LeBron's case, Kyrie Irving was the only homegrown player on the Cavaliers. They had to bring Kevin Love, and LeBron James came as a free agent to Cleveland. And notice when he went to Miami, LeBron came as a free agent. Chris Bosh was a free agent. Dwayne Wade was a free agent, even though Wade was already there. But if you look at this team too, guys, you notice this. LeBron at this point was 29 years old. Kyrie Irving was only 22, and Kevin Love, I think, was 25, turning 26. So LeBron had younger talent, but Kyrie had made two All-Star teams, and Kevin Love had made three. So when you add the All-Star groups, Wade, Bosh, Kyrie, Kevin, that's more. So that's why I tell you that that's crazy because when you consider all that, it just lets you know that they've been with some homegrown talent. And again, shout out to Speaking My Sports Talk. G Money says the Hawks won, gotten destroyed in the NBA Finals. Oh yeah, I believe Los City Clippers was more overrated than the Hawks. They're more overrated because they just didn't get the job done. Something always happened to that team at the wrong time. The Warriors built the blueprint for small market teams to how to build a successful franchise. Absolutely, and I'll get to the Warriors last. Was buzzing? Appreciate it. Exactly, guys. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you guys have not. I disagree. Did you hear about Wojnarowski? Yeah, I did hear about that. He ended up getting dismissed by ESPN. I can't even say it. He got dismissed by the four-letter word. 2012-2013 Lakers. Shout out to Mr. Perfect. Haven't seen you in a while. By the way, you're like one of the greatest wrestlers that I've ever gotten to know, Mr. Perfect. Nah, I'm just playing with you. Nah, but shout out to Mr. Perfect. Hope everything's good with you, man. Again, guys, smash that like and share on your social media outlets, man. Appreciate it. If you have not subscribed to the channel, make sure you do. I always remind you guys, and again, shout out to the entire LSM Mod Squad, and again, shout out to all new subscribers who are here, and again, shout out to people who have also been subscribed to the channel already and just continue to show support to the channel. I truly appreciate it. We are almost at that 1K. Let us keep it going. We are pushing. Appreciate everybody with the support. Appreciate the supporters. Steve Nash, Kobe, and Dwight Howard. I would say that's a failed Big Three attempt. I could have put them in there, but I decided not to. What up, brother? LeBron hasn't even won anything without having two other All-Stars that were franchise players on other teams. And we could also say the same with KD. We could say the same about KD. Well, in terms of Curry, and Thompson, I can't say the same about Klay Thompson. I'll get to the Warriors in a second. I'll get to the Warriors. Let me just keep going right here. But you're speaking facts, Mr. Perfect. I expect Hawks underachieve, not the Los City Clippers. True. 2018 Cavs were a super team until they made trades. The Clippers was overrated because their point guard Chris Paul. Damn, Jay. Some people might disagree, but who knows? Hey, shout out to my man Mahari Nation Sports Podcast. Again, guys, if you have not subscribed to Mahari, he is producing great content over there on his channel. Go subscribe to Mahari Sports Nation's podcast, Mahari Nation Sports Podcast. Excuse me. Like I said, he does historical perspectives throughout the week. He always does basketball conversations on Fridays at 10 p.m. 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Central Time, as he always likes to say. But again, make sure to go check out his channel, man, and make sure to go subscribe if you haven't. He always comes up with such unique perspectives. And again, congratulations to Mohari on 800 subscribers. You truly appreciate it. On the road to 1K. Let's help that brother get to 1K subscribers, man, pretty soon. And I know you're gonna get there pretty soon. Shout out to Gabriel, appreciate you. Says the Nature Boy. And I'm guessing he's talking about Ric Flair. The realist says, do you think that the NBA is going to stop during this restart? The only way I can see it stopping is if something happens during play. But other than that, they've already been advertising about the comeback. July 30th is the date. So it looks like nothing is going to be stopped as of right now, the realist, to be honest with you. The only way that things stop is if there's a stoppage in play during during quarantine, during the games. That's the only way I see it stopping. And it's to the one of the star players, the one that's supposed to help your revenue sharing. Shout out to Gabriel with the Ric Flair reference. That's right. What up, Mr. Perfect? Appreciate you. Let me just continue to look in the chat. Chris Paul has never had really a memorable moment in the playoffs. It's funny, man, because it's like it's really weird because he hasn't, and I think it would be more. He's had more. He's really had more not so memorable than memorable. I'll just put it that way. That's 2014. G Money says, Jay, he had a game winner over Tim Duncan in 2015. Also, he was lighting up the KD Warriors until you know what happened in 2018. I'm going to have to go back and check that series. 2018. G Money, that UFC. I'm getting tired of the trying to make a claim that Michael had more help. The stands don't know. Hey, G Money, I disagree with you because the great point guards make their teammates better. Why you think Chris Paul is not a champion? Chris Paul did make teammates better. He just got unlucky. Chris Paul should have won the chip in 24. Well, you're going a little too far with the whole. I definitely think they should have won a championship, but it's kind of hard to pinpoint. No, he don't. He's a ball dominant player. Do you hate the LeBron? Do you hate the LeBron fan or LeBron? There are some people that hate the LeBron fan, but not LeBron. Chris Paul is ball dominant, but he does get his teammates involved. Plus, Chris Paul has no memorable moments in the playoffs. All right. Chris Paul is a stat pattern. Interesting. Says he disagrees. Chris Paul is the Matt Ryan of the NBA. That's an interesting take, Poseidon. That's an interesting take. He's the Matt Ryan of the NBA. That's interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so 2015. Cavs go to the NBA Finals. They lose to the Golden State Warriors. Kyrie Irving gets hurt in Game 1. LeBron obviously plays out of his mind. 35 points, 13 rebounds, almost 9 assists a game. He only shoots 39%. Obviously, had to take a bulk of the shots. Was still able to have a 2-1 lead against an inexperienced Golden State team that was not expected to go to the NBA Finals that year, even though they won 67 games. But I will not mention what happened with Golden State in 2015 until I get to that team. But anyway, no Kevin Love, no Kyrie. People think that the Cavs win the 2015 NBA Finals. And I'm on record as saying that if Kyrie and Kevin Love are actually healthy in 2015, they beat Golden State. But now we have 2016. 2016, this is under new head coach David Blatt. LeBron and company. Check it out, guys. They won 57 games, but they started 30-8. record 30-8, best record in the Eastern Conference. Then David Black is fired after a 3-game losing streak. In comes Ty Lue, coaches them to 27-14. So he did 3 games worse. They win 57 games, good enough for the number 1 seed in the East. And what happens? They sweep the Pistons. They beat Atlanta in the second round. I believe they beat them in 5 games, I believe. Or it was another sweep. And then in the Eastern Conference Finals, they beat the Toronto Raptors in 6 games on their way to the finals. Now, everybody knows what happened. Golden State went up 3-1. They lost by an average of 24 points through the first 2 games, and that was including a 33-point loss in Game 2. I think that the 2016 finals were not competitive. Being honest with you, I did a video a long time ago on why I said that the 2016 finals was actually one of the worst finals in NBA history, and it's because the first 6 games were all won by double digits. They were all won by double digits. There were moments of competitiveness, but it just really didn't stay competitive. The only one competitive game was Game 7, and that was the last game of the series. That was it. But if you really look at the first 6 games, and I want people to rewatch that, that was not competitive basketball. I'm sorry. It was really not that competitive that people make it out to be. So, obviously, LeBron has the 3-1 comeback. Iguodala's, kind of hobbled a little bit. Andrew Bogut goes down. Obviously, the Draymond suspension for Game 5 and all that, even though he did play 6 and 7 and all this. The Warriors are mentally broken. LeBron and Kyrie help make the comeback. Cleveland wins the title. LeBron fulfills his promise of the 52-year odyssey, according to him. It made him the GOAT because they beat a 73 and 19. Okay, fine. Now we go to 2017. The Cavs are the defending champs. They start the season 28-8, folks. 28-8. Now you're saying to yourself, the Cavs are going to be one of the better teams in the league, right? They have the best record. But what happens in the last 46 games? They played 500 basketball. And the worst part is their defense got worse as the season went on. They actually were they were 25th in the league in the last 46 games in defensive rating and points per game allowed on defense. So the issue was not, and the thing was the media was kind of like, they were a little bit concerned, right? Smash the like, hit that subscribe. Let me just check into the chat real quick once again. All right, 2017 Spurs versus Warriors. If Kawhi didn't get hurt, I think they pushed the Warriors. I think the Warriors would have won, but just barely. I don't know if I agree with that. Black Tiger says, I don't hate LeBron. I respect his game. LeBron is one of the greats. LeBron fans remind me of the Barbs. I'm crying. What are you talking about, man? OKC beat the Clippers in the second round of the playoffs, and the reason for that was because Westbrook exposed Chris Paul, and I think he's talking about 2014. So you hate Westbrook was too athletic for Paul. If we are playing by today's standard, I believe the Warriors will win in 6. Cringe me when he speak about so-and-so. That was in 2014. I admit Cliff should have won the series. The Browns now need to fulfill Cleveland's legacy. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Oh, and by the way, guys, if you're looking to check out the Kobe documentary Part 3 by Clutch Points, give me a thumbs up. Oh, when Chauncey Billups embarrassed Chris Paul in the first round of the playoffs when Chauncey Billups was with the Nuggets, that is fine for Poseidon, but the Bulls will win because they have more depth of defense. Phil Jackson would outcoach Steve Kerr. That's interesting when you're a coach and your team is 30-11 and you still get fired. I've said that. Chris Paul is so great, then why Houston got rid of him? That is crazy, Ron. Okay, so yeah, in 2017, yeah, their defense was not great, but then the proverbial switch came off. They beat the Pacers and they sweep them. Paul George, as G Money has mentioned so many times about Paul George choking, but he's had big moments too in the playoffs. But in that series he did choke in 2017. Paul George did in the first round. Second round, they swept the 51 win Raptors, the LeBronto Raptors as I call them. That team was another fool's gold team. Eastern Conference Finals against little Isaiah Thomas. Much respect to Isaiah Thomas. I know the guy's got a lot of heart, but I'm sorry. The Celtics were no match for the Cavaliers. They were just more talented. That was a much more talented team. And that Game 3 loss that the Cavaliers had, I'm gonna be honest, that was a fluke. That should have been a 4-game sweep. So yeah, the media was like, oh yeah, LeBron and the Cavs, they flipped the switch, and they'll usually be like, oh, don't worry, they just coast through the regular season because they'll be fine by playoffs because LeBron is resting for the playoffs. But you see how they continue to change the narrative with that. They changed the narrative with that. Then when they asked LeBron about Golden State, I didn't want to face that juggernaut because that was the first year with KD. And I pulled up the numbers already. When you look at those NBA Finals, Cleveland's biggest issue was defense and the LeBron system. Was I saying that the Cavaliers were going to beat the Warriors in a 7-game series? No, but they could have won. They had the ability to win 2 games in that series. They did win one in Game 4, but it took so much for them to even win that game. They had to be so hot from the 3-point line. They got 22 free throws in the first quarter. It took all that just for them to beat them. And the Warriors still scored 68 points in the first half in Game 4. That to me was crazy. And I said the Cavaliers are losing I said the Cavaliers are going to lose the next game. But it wasn't because they couldn't hang. It was because they just did not defend well. And it was the defensive coverages that just said the key thing, though, was KD did help them space the floor for both Curry and Steph. And it also, they helped space the floor for Kevin Durant, which I'll get to LeBron and Durant in a second. If Chris Paul's so great, I agree with those reasons you just mentioned. Harder than one CP3 on the team. Do you think CP3 is kind of jealous of Curry's success? He is. He is. He is. CP3 is not going to admit it, but he's jealous of stuff. Curry's way better than Chris Paul. I say Chris Paul is the better pure point guard, but in terms of the best point guard, Curry's better than Chris Paul. Yep, they should have won. That's not even a debate. Curry over Paul all day. 2017 Cavs and Warriors were even. Absolutely, which I was about to get to. Cavs only lost by 5 and 9 in 2017. Yeah, which tells you that the Cavs had a chance to win in games 3 and 5. In games 3 and 5, and remember they won game 4. What does that tell you? That they had Cleveland possibly could have pulled off 2 to 3, could have possibly pulled off 3 wins in that series. It was horrible. And let's look at the numbers. See, they didn't talk about that, right? LeBron James averaged 34 points, 12 rebounds, 12 assists on 56% shooting, right? Kevin Durant, 35 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 57% shooting. LeBron did not play great defense on Kevin Durant. He wasn't the only one. The Cavs team as a whole played poor defense on KD. Okay, Steph Curry, 26.8 points per game, 9.4 assists, 8.5 rebounds, 44% shooting. Kyrie Irving, 29 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists on 47% shooting. Where is this lopsided juggernaut that I'm hearing? Okay, Klay Thompson against Kevin Love. Klay Thompson, 16 points, shot 38% from the field. No, I think 39%, my bad. Kevin Love, 16 points, 10 rebounds on 38% shooting. I don't really see the difference, folks. This is the 4-on-4. Then you got Draymond Green, 11 points per game, and Draymond shot, I think it was 39%. J.R. Smith averages 11 points and he shoots 54% from the field. He shot 58% from the three-point line. Did J.R. Smith? That was an even matchup. And Golden State's bench, it was good, but it was not as stronger as their 2016 and 2015 bench. Yeah, you got Iguodala, you got Livingston. Obviously, they do the job. Obviously, I'm not saying that, but the thing is, they didn't combat that with a system. So when you look at LeBron's Big Three era, LeBron James, what happened was instead of taking the principles that he learned in Miami, he went back to the LeBron system in Cleveland, and it was able to benefit him for at least one championship. It just didn't happen for the other ones. All right, so now we go. So obviously they get gentlemen swept at 5. Durant wins Finals MVP. Then you go to 2018. Kyrie Irving gets traded in the offseason. They bring in Isaiah Thomas. They trade for each other. They get Jay Crowder. They get Jeff Green. Uh, obviously Kyle Korver's already on the team. They had, so they bring pieces in. They get Derrick Rose. They bring in Dwayne Wade. So you're thinking everything is good, right? Jay says pure point guards never win. Curry's better than Chris Paul. I admit CP3 is the best pure point guard in the game right now. True. KD outscored Braun 46-27 in the fourth quarter in 2017. So that means, so if you average the points, LeBron James only averaged 5 points in the fourth quarter in 5 games. Kevin Durant averaged over 9. Wow. Wow. Interesting. Durant was the difference in 2017. He was unguardable because you have to look for those crazy cuts against the Splash Brothers. Well, the thing is, Durant fits in seamlessly. Durant didn't take away from what the Warriors were doing. And the thing is, when they needed to get a basket, if there was a broken play, Durant could get it for them. So I'm not saying that Durant didn't make a difference, but when it came to their matchup for Poseidon, they were mano a mano. It's just the Cavs chose not to defend. Durant is the only reason why the Warriors beat LeBron both years in the finals. Yeah, it's not just the system, but he was the weapon they needed because you take Durant off that team and you put them back with the Barbosas and the Festus Azelis and the Andrew Bogut's and stuff like that, the Cavs would have been beating Golden State. And the media, you would be hearing it from them every single day on how LeBron owns Golden State. Because in the Eastern Conference, he already owns the Toronto Raptors, the LeBronto Raptors. But in the NBA Finals, he would have owned them. JR shot 54% and 58 from 3. Clay only shot 43%, but he did shoot 43% from 3 in the series. Yeah, no, he shot 43% from 3. Yeah, that's fine. But still, Clay did not shoot the ball well from the field, just from the three-point line. And I hate Draymond. He acts like he scored. That's why I said that when you look at the finals matchups, it was pretty mano a mano when he actually was in the system. LeBron, that's neither side's a highlight. That's why LeBron likes to pick on smaller players. I've already said that Durant is the difference. If Durant never goes to the Warriors, LeBron would have a three-peat. Yeah, LeBron would have three-peated. And the thing is, the Cavaliers would have been talked about differently, and just think how LeBron would be talked about even more different. He has a much stronger case. His finals record is better, and then when you compare him to Jordan, he repeated with the Miami Heat. He goes to a different team, and then he repeats. Yeah, that would have been crazy. But what I still would have given the edge to MJ to is that he did 2 different three-peats with one franchise. But not saying that LeBron's isn't impressive though, and that would have put LeBron at 5 championships. His case looks a lot stronger against MJ. If KD wasn't on the Warriors, the Spurs and the Rockets would have made the NBA Finals in 2017 and 2018. Well, depends on who they play, but I think I would say most likely. KD was the insurance. Draymond is today's Bill Laimbeer. Oh, that's a watered down version. Durant changed the whole landscape of the league, which was a good thing, and I was glad because I didn't want. Oh, he didn't want him to get that three-peat. I see. Again, smash that like. We got 27 likes, ladies and gentlemen. We got 14 people watching right now. Oh wait, Poseidon says Chris Broussard said Durant was a luxury rather than a necessity. Oh, he was a necessity for them. That Cavs had players that could score and not defend, or vice versa, and couldn't find the right balance in key moments. Warriors bench was okay, but it wasn't that much better than the Cavs bench. Exactly. Do you believe the spats? Do you believe? I'm basically saying. I think what you're trying to say, Poseidon, is do you think that the stats they need to be put into context? Yeah, for sure. So yeah, so going to 2018, LeBron has a great season in year 15. First time he plays 82 games, but unfortunately, they had to trade the half of the roster because the roster had a lot of chemistry problems and turmoil in the locker room. Not going to get into the whole leadership thing with Bron, but anyway, the Cavs won 50 games. People raved about the trade of the younger players that they got, but they were really cast-offs, to be honest with you. They went 7 games against the Indiana Pacer team, young Pacer team with Victor Oladipo as its best player, and you can make a case the Pacers should have won the series. Then they beat a 59-win Toronto Raptors team, or should I say LeBronto's Raptors team, the Toronto Raptors at that point, because they were not really a championship team, no matter how much Toronto fans were really thinking that they were. They just were not a championship team. DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, that does not convince me enough. Even if they have Fred VanVleet and some of those players. Marcus Gasol and Serge Ibaka were not. Actually, no, Serge Ibaka was on that team, but Marcus Gasol was not on that team. Pascal Siakam had not come into his own yet. And because of that, he swept them. They swept him. Then in the Eastern Conference Finals, without Kyrie and Gordon Hayward, the two best players, Boston still took LeBron and them to 7 games when I felt that LeBron should have beaten them in at least 6 because they didn't have a go-to player. But the Boston had a had a system. They played well together in that system. Home court. LeBron did not have home court the last 3 rounds, but that's gonna be, and that's the problem with LeBron that I've noticed that they've painted him as this underdog, but he's the best. When you're the best, you dominate. When you're the best, you dominate. That's why, in a way, Curry's legacy is hurt in a way because of KD. Yeah, I think so. It threw a monkey wrench. People picks on KD, Kawhi, and sometimes Curry because they interfere LeBron's. Yeah, that's the bottom line, Black Tiger. You hit the nail on the head. And notice that Curry's the only player that gets compared to Kawhi, Giannis, LeBron, KD. He's the only point guard that gets compared to those four players. Does anybody ever stop and think about why is it that Curry gets compared to 4 small forwards? Now, if Curry can win some more championships without Durant, then you have to put him in the combo as the best point guard of all time. Well, he's definitely one of the best for sure. I still shout out to Raduni. I still think the Cavs, well coached, would have at least taken the Warriors to 7 games. Exactly. I think when you well coach them, you implement an actual system. I honestly think that they could have. They had opportunities to win and make it competitive. Speaking on says Curry and Paul are equivalent. They both have qualities that one doesn't, and both have qualities that the other doesn't. Interesting. But still, I still thought that they would have beat. I still thought that they would have beaten them regardless. I think you're talking about Game 7 against the Indiana Pacers. Right. What was I gonna say? But yeah. So getting back on this, guys. So then, obviously, everybody knows what happened in Game 1. Uh, one of the worst officiated games ever. We already know what happened at the end of regulation. We know what happened in overtime. LeBron ends up getting swept in 4 games, and it's the end of the Big Three era. But if you notice with Kevin Durant and you notice with LeBron James, in LeBron's first Big Three, he left. and left Wade and Bosh. In LeBron's second big three, Kyrie got traded, and then LeBron left, leaving Kevin Love on his own. With KD, James Harden was gone, then Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. So a lot of circumstances had happened, and everybody knows. Crazy thing is, with the way the Warriors look, I believe they may be able to get another championship. I think they got one more in them, to be honest, during Curry and Clay's time. The Warriors can have another dynasty. I wouldn't say another dynasty run, but I think they'll have another championship that they can win. I wouldn't say another dynasty run, but I think they can win another championship. And then, and that's the end of the Big Three era in Cleveland. LeBron is now a Laker. Kevin Love is still with the Cavaliers, and Kyrie Irving is a Brooklyn Net after going to the Boston Celtics for 2 seasons. So now, last but not least, we get to KD, Steph, Clay, and those Warriors. Now, the Golden State Warriors, that was another homegrown team that just happened to include Kevin Durant. Steph Curry, number 7 overall pick in the '09 draft. Klay Thompson, 11th pick in the 2011 NBA draft. Draymond Green was the 35th pick in the draft, second round pick. Festus Ezeli was a second round pick, and Harrison Barnes was a second round pick. Notice that. They built their team to the draft. So when I look at the Cavaliers, the only homegrown was really Kyrie Irving. LeBron and Kevin Love were the pieces put together, one by trade and one by free agency, one homegrown. LeBron James, free agent in Miami. OKC, homegrown. Paul Pierce, the only homegrown Celtic. Ray Allen, traded to Boston. Kevin Garnett, traded to Boston. And Kevin Love and Kyrie were even younger than Wade and Bosh when LeBron came back over there. So now, KD and Steph and Clay. I just mentioned they built their team through the draft. Would have made a great finals. Oh, absolutely. I would even go as far as the Rockets too. I believe the Nuggets will be the next dynasty. You can make a case. Curry has the better three ball while Chris has the better mid range. Curry has the better dribbles while Chris Paul has the better decision making. But you could also say that Chris Paul's got dribbles of his own. They both drive to the lane equivalent. The Warriors might get the first pick in the draft because Curry and Thompson are both healthy, and Greek Freak being a free agent and possibly going to the Warriors, that's another potential dynasty. It's possible. Celtics, yeah. Okay, so getting back to the Warriors, they built their team. Obviously, Mark Jackson changes the culture when he gets the coach, becomes coach. 47 wins in 2013, 51 wins in 2014. Obviously, they get bounced off in the second round in 2013, first round in 2014. Steve Kerr comes in and coaches. Draymond becomes a starter. David Lee comes off the bench. Same with Iguodala. Next thing you know, the Golden State Warriors become a 67-win team when nobody had that team as a championship team that year. Steph Curry wins MVP. He became a All-Star. Curry's breakout season was 2013, 272 three-pointers, which beat the record of 269 set by Ray Allen. Then on top of that, Curry makes the All-Star team in 2014, which was his first All-Star appearance. Then you look at 2015, Curry makes his second All-Star appearance, and then Clay makes his first, guys. Golden State wins the championship the very next year. This is what the super team started to be talked about. At this point, there was no super team talk in 2016. Because of the 73 wins, that's when the super team talk started to surface itself. But the 73 and 9 Warriors were not a super team. So what happens is Curry wins the unanimous MVP, 30 points per game, on 50, 40, 90 shooting, unanimous MVP. No player has had a 50, 40, 90 season in their MVP season. Curry was the first to do that. Golden State wins 73 wins, set by the 72 win Bulls in 96. Curry injures his ankle in game one, then tears his MCL in game four after coming back from that ankle injury. Golden State does go to the Western Conference Finals after beating Portland in five and then beating Houston in five in the first round and then Portland in the second round in five. When Curry had that historic 40-point game and scored 17 points in overtime in the fourth quarter in overtime, which was an NBA playoff record. Obviously, Curry and Klay come back from that 3-1 deficit and they beat OKC. Go to the NBA Finals when OKC should have clearly won that series. Draymond gets suspended for game four. Should have got suspended. Didn't happen. Let me just continue to go into the chat. I feel sorry for Philly because I feel Ben and Embiid is slowing that team down. They're just too immature. Mark Jackson deserves a head coaching job. And don't forget J.R. Smith, Mozgov, and Milan Shumpert until the Cavs got those role players. Oh, yeah, we mentioned that. Nobody saw the Warriors coming. Facts. It's a damn shame that Mark Jackson is not coaching in the league. Mark Jackson should have coached the 76ers. The Warriors became a super team when Kevin Durant came. Just because you win a certain amount of games doesn't make you a super team. I believe if you traded Curry and then you put him on the Clippers team, then you trade Chris Paul and put him with Durant and Klay, then you would get the same results. Warriors become a super team until they got KD. Curry didn't really come onto the scene until 2013, right? That 73 win team was not a super team like the narrative depicts. Facts. He disagrees. Okay. Yeah, that's in the finals. I'm talking about in the Western Conference Finals. He should have gotten suspended in game four after what he did. If you put Chris Paul on that Warriors team, he will mess up the team chemistry. Chris Paul is too ball dominant. I disagree, Jay. He says that. How so? Okay, interesting. So we got a little back and forth going on. Again, guys, continue to smash the like and hit that subscribe. Back on the Lewis Sports Network talking about the homegrown versus player created. Okay, so everything changed on July 4th when Kevin Durant decided to join the team that he had just lost to after having a 3-1 lead. That's what everybody was upset about. Kevin Durant was a free agent. He joined Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. Now, who's really the number one option? KD is the number one option. But Klay Thompson is really your number three option. He's not even a number two. He was a number two because he was Steph's sidekick, but he's not a number. He's really not even a number two. I would put Klay as a number three, but a very good number three. Klay as the number one option on a basketball team isn't going to go well for Klay. It's just not. Shout out to Tyree in the building. Appreciate you. Him coach the New Orleans Pelicans. Maybe he could get the best out of Lonzo. CP3 would have given KD and Klay more open shot opportunities. I don't even know about more. Chris wasn't ball dominant with Harden. The loss was due to coaching. Plus, Curry can move without the ball. Curry doesn't need the ball to be a factor. Exactly, DJ. Coaching and bad execution was the difference. Chris Paul had to be ball dominant with the Clippers because there wasn't really anyone else to control the ball. Just imagine Kawhi and Paul was with CP3. Oh, I see Paul George with CP3, Blake, and DeAndre on one team. Facts, DJ. Blake could dribble, but he isn't a true ball handler. Okay. So, Kevin Durant made the Warriors into what they are, a super team. They had to lose Leandro Barbosa. They had to lose Brandon Rush. They had to lose Festus Ezeli. They had to lose who am I thinking about? They had to lose Andrew Bogut. They had to lose Harrison Barnes. That's five. They had to lose who else? Mo Spates. That's six. Trying to remember who's the last person. Hold on, Ezeli, Mo Spates, Barbosa, Harrison Barnes, Bogut, Brandon Rush. I don't remember who the other guy was, but it was seven though. Chris Paul is like all the things need to be about them. CP3, but CP3 can be selfish. Rocket's small team is kind of stupid, but when we watch that Houston team and see Harden with the ball, Chris Paul would just stand in the corner instead of moving around and finding lanes to get open. I can understand what you're saying, Jay, but that also goes to coaching too, though. That's on Mike D'Antoni. The Cavs in 2016 was more talented. If Bron, Kyrie, and Love played a 3-on-3 against Steph, Clay, and Draymond, you know who would win. I know who I would take. Chris Paul can never move without the ball. That's what makes guys like Isaiah Thomas and Steph Curry special because they can do that consistently. Also, people need to get rid of the KD join the 73-win team. Oh, Anderson Varejao. That's who I was forgetting. Thank you, G Money. Anderson Varejao. Because he was on the Cavaliers to start the season, and then he ended up getting released, and then Golden State picked him up. But yeah, 2017 and 2018, KD dominates. The Warriors win back-to-back titles. The Warriors went to five straight NBA Finals during that time. Some people even said that the Warriors, their 16-1 record is flawed because they didn't play any competition. But then when LeBron lost, it was about they were 16-1. They won 67 games. It's the greatest team ever assembled. That's a bunch of nonsense. People who keep saying that they're the greatest team ever assembled, they're a great team, but they're not the greatest team ever assembled. The core players are Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson. People need to cut the crap with the narratives. It's not the greatest team ever assembled. They did win three championships in a 5-year span. They had chances to win in 2016 and 2019. It would be looked even more different had they had won a fourth title in 5 years. And imagine if they would have three-peated. Now, if they don't lose in 2016, to me things would have been different. I don't think the Warriors would have three-peated though. I don't think so, especially because Kevin Durant is not there. So yeah, when you look at LeBron's streak, it formed by forming two different teams. And what Kevin Durant joined was a core of Draymond, Steph, and Clay. They ended up losing Eon Clark. That's true. I agree, G Money. The Warriors pretty much lost their whole bench just to get Kevin Durant. People forget that. Jay, I didn't know this Chris Paul having any problems at all moving without the ball when he got with the Rockets. Again, with the Clippers, it was a different system, so the opportunity wasn't there. Larry Bird Celtics. Some people would probably disagree with that. They need to move on from about the KD with the. I know they're still talking about that to this day. That's why I get so tired of it. It's like at this point, no matter how much people want to complain, you gotta have to pretty much move on because at the end of the day, when it comes to both LeBron and KD, we know how both of those guys got their championships. At the end of the day. So, you ask yourself, are the championships valid? They are. They are. Some people would say no, but it is what it is. And again, guys, make sure to smash the like, hit that subscribe for the Lewis Sports Network. Truly appreciate that. Um, Chris Paul, Ian Clark was on the 73 team was a very good and a very good system that maxed out during the regular season. That's it. Thank you, Ron. Ian Clark was on the 2017 Warriors. Chris Paul loves the ball in his hands. That's the problem in Houston. Harden didn't like sharing the ball with Chris Paul. That's true. Both of them are very ball dominant. I do agree with Jay Jefferson on that one. Those are two ball dominant players because people were wondering how was that going to work. They were able to make it work. They were able to make it work. But I just think in the playoffs was where it was going to hurt. Harden was complaining because Paul would mess up the flow of the offense. Well, the flow of his offense. But yeah, so when I look at that big three, all right, cool. So when we look at the big three, honestly, with Golden State of Steph, Clay, and KD, the key thing for them is the roster had to be completely gutted, and at times KD had to play with the second unit. Same thing with all those guys. That's how they were still able to make it work. And the league had not caught up to them in terms of their style of play and what Steph Curry had begun to do on a very consistent basis, especially when it came to being a championship team. But there's too many bad areas. The games were a lot closer than you think in the finals in 2017 and 2018. And the thing is, before Kevin Durant arrived, it's crazy to me that how they had no chance, but there were more blowouts in 2016 than there were in 2017 and 2018 combined. Doesn't that seem weird, ladies and gentlemen? The fact that the 2016 NBA Finals had 6 blowouts by double digits, but 2017 and 2018, the series that were much shorter, they didn't have as many. LeBron did the best he could for his career, and KD also. They got to win. Kawhi, Jordan, Bron, and AD would have been an ultra super team. Oh yeah, they would have been the event. We should call them. Yep, they would have been the Avengers for sure. And so when you look at so finally in closing, before I shut down this stream, basically, and again, shout out to everybody. What I wanted to say once again is they was born and overpowered. Exactly, exactly. So at the end of the day, when you look at homegrown versus player created, Durant and LeBron, Durant was part of a homegrown and he was part of a player created because Steph Curry and Klay Thompson are not at the age of 30. Neither was Kevin Durant. LeBron James had did the same thing. Both players joined with other players that were below the age of 30. That's what makes it so similar. The only difference is KD went to a team that he lost to in the previous year. But it still doesn't change the fact that they both joined other players that are at the age below 30. That's what people got to remember. And then when LeBron went back to Cleveland, he joined two players that were even younger, but also had already multiple All Star appearances. Clay had made two All Star teams. Steph Curry had made three when Durant joined, and Draymond Green had made an All Star team. But let's be real, Draymond is not a real All Star. He just gets it because he's on the Golden State Warriors. Mm-hmm. LeBron gutted his team also, man. I do think the Laker team will win like 3 titles in a row. Yep. So like I said, at the end of the day, LeBron and Kevin Durant are the beneficiaries of their championships. And when you look at homegrown, if you look at the Boston Celtics, they're the oldest big three out of these bunches. The other big threes are all younger. They all formed before the age of 30, and Braun got to be part of two of them. Two different big threes. Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce were in their 30s when they came together. And like I said before, Ray Allen and KG were traded to the Boston Celtics. They didn't come there as free agents. LeBron came as a free agent to both Miami and then back to Cleveland. Kyrie was already there, and Kevin Love was traded for Andrew Wiggins to come to that team. You look at the OKC Thunder, Russ, Harden, and KD were all drafted there. And then if you look at the Golden State Warriors, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Steph Curry were all drafted there before Kevin Durant's arrival. See, but people will come back and say, "Oh, but LeBron started in Cleveland, so he's homegrown." And it's like, no, it's a different scenario now because he just came from another team. Had LeBron stayed in Cleveland, then you would have been right in terms of that LeBron was homegrown the entire time. When if if he had a Kevin Love and a Kyrie Irving on the team, but then the question is, would the Cavaliers even be a lottery team, or would they consistently be winning games? Yeah, and the homegrown is you're cooking something from scratch. When you look at the Thunder, they got to the NBA Finals from scratch. You look at the Golden State Warriors, they got to the NBA Finals from scratch. You can't say the same with the Cleveland Cavaliers of 2015 to 2018 once they formed the Big Three. You can't say that about the Miami Heat when they formed their Big Three. Now, they did have losing seasons prior in terms of Cleveland and Boston, but the scenarios are very different. Shout out to Jay. Shout out to Valix. Appreciate you, man. Again, make sure to hit that like button, man, and hit that subscribe button for the Lewis Sports Network. So, like I said, the difference between homegrown and player created is there's two players in this entire thing that formed that formed that formed super teams, and that's LeBron and Kevin Durant, to the top two forwards in the league. LeBron's fortunes changed when Kevin Durant went to Golden State, and that's what people have been mad about to this day. That's the problem. Yep. Shout out to Jay in the building. Appreciate you. And again, shout out to Valix. Cool dudes. All right. Shout out to D. Appreciate you. Take care, everybody. Take care. Take care, D. I don't know about 4P. I say they have a better chance at 3P'ing than 4P'ing. But anyway, guys, shout out to everybody. Thank you for coming through the live stream. Again, you guys don't have to donate to the channel. I left the links on the Cash App and on the PayPal in the description down below. But once again, guys, this was Lewis with another one. Shout out to everybody in the chat. You guys kept it lit. I appreciate you guys. And as always, from the Lewis Sports Network, this was a great live stream. Appreciate you guys. I'm gonna have a panel for the Steph Curry one. That'll be coming up in about 19 minutes. So if you want to be part of the Steph Curry panel, just give me a thumbs up and just let me know if you want to be a part of it, and I will have you invite you on. All right. So take care, guys. From the Lewis Sports Network, bless up. Live, laugh, love. Thank you guys for being a part of the stream. Take care, and I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.